How does a narcissist react when you become fearless? Let's dive into that in this video. Today, we're going to talk about 5 ways that a narcissist reacts when you become fearless. So, if you've ever wondered what happened, what's going to happen when you become fearless with narcissists, we're going to be breaking down the kind of fascinating ways that they respond when you become fearless. It's sort of like when you're dealing with a toddler having a tantrum, right? They've been conditioning you from the beginning. You sort of went along with that conditioning when they were sort of testing you. So what happens is at the beginning of the relationship, they started love bombing you and everything was amazing. And the dopamine, was going off in your brain. And you were like, oh my gosh, this is the most incredible person I've ever met. And they were like, wow, you're amazing. I was in a business relationship with a narcissist, and it was actually the same thing. Let's get to the next level. Let's sign contracts, people that I can introduce you to. And it was 50 emails a day and all of this flurry. And you think that it's going to be the most incredible relationship that you've ever been in. And so everything is wonderful at the beginning. And once they lock you in, that's when you start to see the tarnish. Everything kind of falls apart. The wheels start falling off the car at that point. And that's when you start to, as the empath, start to see, okay, there's stories or something is going on and your boundaries start to get pushed because they had something going on in their family. So you start picking up the slack for things and I will handle all of this for you. Or maybe their stories didn't add up on something, or maybe they swooped in at a time that you were extremely vulnerable and they're handling things for you. And now, you're wondering, where did they go? The way a narcissistic relationship starts is always either they're the hero or the victim. Things shift at the beginning, in the middle of the relationship, after the beginning. And so when you start to see that bloom coming off the rose and now you have kind of shifted into that discard phase of the relationship and you want to change how things are going to be, and you now want to become fearless and you want to change the rules of the game, the first thing that they're going to want to do is kind of become like a toddler having that tantrum and go, I'm going to push back again. And they're going to act like that toddler again. They'll think, I just need to scream louder. I just need to scream longer. I just need to kick more. It's sort of like that shock and disbelief. So the first thing you're going to see from them is that sort of shock and disbelief, like, what's going on here? I don't like what's happening. I don't like this shift in the wind. I don't like this change. You'll start to see them have some sort of love bombing again. They might try to get things back the way they were. I like things the way they were. So either they will go back to the future faking that always worked in the past. They'll kind of go back to the control tactics that worked before, sort of like a stun gun to them. They're not going to be quite certain about what to do at that beginning stage. So that's number one. The second thing that's going to happen is, okay, now I'm no longer stunned. So let me intensify the manipulation. The second thing that's going to happen is intensified manipulation. So let me double down on whatever it is that I was doing before. Double down on control, double down on manipulation tactics. If they were controlling you before through text messages, controlling you before through fear tactics, controlling you before through intimidation, through gaslighting, through how it was that they were treating you before, whatever it was that they were doing before to keep control of you, you will see more of that. So whatever it was that they were doing to have control of you in the past, you might see an intensified version of that, more threats, whatever it was, that you might see a heightened version of that. Because, they're fear-based individuals. They'll be coming from that place of fear and continuing to be from that place of fear, but heightened, more of it. That's what you'll see next. The third thing that you're going to see is, okay, this isn't working. So I'm going to go now to anger. I'm going to go now to aggression. Now you're going to go into more of a critical phase. If you do this, I'm going to do this. Now you're going to start to see some threats, some guilt measures, or maybe even some covert tactics. I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to take money. If it's a business partnership, threats of, I'll take all of the employees. This is going to be a critical phase to navigate, because now you might start to see the birth of a smear campaign. They might start to say, I'll make sure you never work in this town again. I will tell everybody what a horrible person you are. They might empty threats, the things that they might say. This is where they start to heighten their aggression. If you guys have seen these sorts of things, I'd love to know. Drop a comment below. Let me know what kinds of things you guys have seen. Let me know. I've seen it. Put it in the comments below. And if you are dealing with this, make sure that you grab my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet. It is totally free. You will definitely want to grab that, especially if you're negotiating with a narcissist. winmynegotiation.com. Make sure you grab that as well. Make sure you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators at Rebecca Zung. Links to all of that is below as well. Next is the attempts to gaslight you, diminish your confidence. Now it's going to be ongoing personal attacks on you, making sure that they undermine you, undermine your strength, undermine anything that you're trying to do. If you are starting a new endeavor, that's going to definitely fail. If you are with a new business partner, that person's a loser. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, that's going to be blown up in smoke. Everything you are doing, they are going to go after. You're never going to make it without me. No one is ever going to believe you. No one's ever going to hire you. Anything you're going to try to do, they're going to try to get you at every turn. I'll make sure that the kids are turned against you. I'll make sure you never see your kids. I'll make sure you're out on the street. Whatever it is, they're going to try to undermine you. So that's the next thing. The final piece that they are going to try to do when you try to become fearless and on your own is they will retreat and then also seek new targets. If they really think that you are completely done, then they may just give up on you and go look for new supply. But if that is the case, it will never completely give up on you as a source of supply, as long as you are a source of supply. And what I mean by that is people think that narcissists just want to win. And the reason why you cannot finish negotiating with them is because diamond level supply, which is what I call diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world, their image is just, which is winning. That's just one piece of the equation. The other piece of the equation is manipulating you, seeing you squirm, jerking you around. That is what I call coal-level supply. And as long as they are getting that, they will never let you go. And so what you have to do is figure out what source of supply is more important for them to keep than the supply that they get from jerking you around, and then threaten that source of supply. And that is my slay method. And that is how you will be done with this thing. Otherwise, they will continue to move goalposts. Always, always, always. And that's why you can never be done. And this is whether you're negotiating with them in a formal setting or just in your family. I still have fear at times And it's really, really hard. And so I want to talk today about how you turn your fear into power. How do you have that unshakable confidence? I know a lot of people feel like, oh my God, you must be confident all the time. I've done lots and lots of trials. I teach people how to negotiate with narcissists, right? Does that mean I'm never afraid? No, I still get triggered. I still have those times when I'm walking into meetings or I'm walking into situations and I go, oh my God, how do I handle this situation? Right? I still have those times where feeling intimidated. How do you handle that? Well, first of all, I want you to know that by the end of this, you will have tools. And if you are new here, you haven't subscribed to this channel, I invite you to do so because every single day I'm helping you have tools, have resources so that you can feel like you have a voice. And I know sometimes you feel like you don't. Sometimes you feel so afraid. And especially when you're dealing with toxic people, they can trigger you. They go right for that jugular, they go right for your Achilles heel. They know where to go. They do. And your breathing starts to take over and your amygdala is shaking and you're like, oh my God, because they know where to go. The first thing I want you to do is start to realize, what are your triggers? What is it that is triggering you? And just start to notice when you are feeling a certain way. I think if you can start to stop and see what it is that triggers you, and I say stop, swap, and soar. Okay. Because that first stop where you can go, let me pause, let me not react and not act impulsively and just be in a breathing state for a moment, just even a moment, and notice that you are being triggered. It really helps in realizing that a lot of times it's just a thought. Your thoughts are just energy, they're just beams of neurons that are going on in your brain. They're not necessarily real. It's just a thing that happens to you. If you can stop for a moment and regain your composure, it gives you a second to realize, you know what? I can put an invisible shield and that invisible boundary down around you so that you can start to see that other person as if you are observing them, as if you're observing like a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. And then you can put this boundary down around you and say, you know what? I'm a person who deserves respect. You can put like that Teflon down around you and start to have a shield and demand that you're spoken to with respect. And have that mindfulness, have that composure. Just pause. That's your first thing. Reflect. Then you can start to go, you know what? I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. I can see that maybe we need to take this and speak later when you're calmed down. And then for yourself, you can reflect on the things that make you angry, the things that cause you to be defensive. I know for me, if somebody speaks to me in a way that is condescending, that to me is a trigger. And I get defensive on that. And that's a common theme for me. And I immediately, want to be triggered by that. And so for me, I have to stop myself and go, I'm not going to react because I can do things or I can say things that might cause me to do things that I might regret. So I have to stop and I have to go, you know what? What causes me to have those emotions? The best skill that a human can have is control of their emotions. Start to journal, write about your experiences, write about your feelings. Over time, if you can reveal your patterns, you can reveal your triggers, it'll really help you because then you can start to notice them. What are the physical sensations that you have when you start to feel triggered? What are the physical signs that are your emotions? Do you get a racing heart? Do you have tightening in your chest? Do you have a knot in your stomach? And then start to engage in that and be more attuned to your bodily responses. And then when you start to feel those signals coming on, you can go, you know what? I'm going to take myself out of this right now. I'm not going to allow myself. You can start to observe, not absorb. Invisible boundary comes down. Excuse me, I'm going to remove myself from this situation right now. Learn to notice those external cues when you're feeling disrespected, when you're feeling unheard, misunderstood. Excuse me, I see that you're upset. You can take that pause. You can identify those emotions. You can acknowledge your feelings. You can take that moment to use that rational thought. I say take a pause, right? Pause and breathe, acknowledge your thoughts, use rational thought, shift your focus, and then excuse yourself if needed. Pause. Then you can take the time to reflect. So that's stopping. The next thing is to swap. The swapping is to now you can shift into being more powerful, turning your fear into power. What can you do instead? You can make a plan. You can say, next time we talk, we're going to have an agenda. We're going to have a scope. We're going to have a time limit. I call it making a plan, Stan. When you go to talk to them, you're going to have an agenda. You're going to have a time limit. You're going to say, we have to stick to this time limit. We're going to have to stick to this agenda. And that's it. You want to go beyond this scope? Sorry, buddy. We're not talking about that today. When it hits the time limit, I would love to talk to you more, but sorry, gotta go. Make sure they know about the scope in advance. Make sure they know about the time limit in advance. And then the next thing is never jade. Even though I love jade, love it, but I don't love never jade. Never justify, argue, defend, or explain, right? Never justify, argue, defend, or explain. When you're having a conversation with them, instead of using anger, use curiosity. Tell me more about that. Why would you say that? That's interesting. Instead of anger, use curiosity. So that's how you respond. Observational phrases like you're reporting the news. You're never justifying, you're never arguing, you're never explaining. You are just reporting the news, just the facts. If this is helpful so far, I want to hear a yes. I want to see yes in the comments below. Helpful? What has helped you so much so far? Give me some feedback in the comments below on this video, and I want to get some conversation going. What has given you the most fear? What gives you the most fear when you go to have conversations with difficult people, or people who are toxic, people who are intimidating you? I want to know. When you comment on this video, it actually helps other people too. When we share, when we're vulnerable, when we talk about this, it actually develops a community here, and we actually help each other. We empower each other. We inspire each other. We lift each other up. Comment below what has helped you, or what phrases have helped you so far that I've given you. All right. Another one is a non-confrontational phrase, like just, that's an interesting perspective, something like that. Or thank you, I'll consider it. I agree that that's your perspective. Interesting feedback. Just say anything like that. Non-confrontational phrases. The next thing is the what's so principle. You know what that is? You keep your focus on what is so instead of the what if. What's so instead of what if. The facts. Keep yourself focused on what is actually happening. A lot of times, the what so principle is so much better. How good have you been? How amazing you've been? What you've accomplished? The things that are going on in your case. Rely on factual reasoning, or the things that are really going on in your world. And if you're going to go off into what if, by the way, how about what ifing yourself into great things? Because you're going to what if yourself into an amazing future, because your thoughts create your reality. Or take a time out The other thing I do with fear, by the way, is I like to have a conversation with fear. I get to say, hey, fear, we're going on a ride. We're going to do this thing and it's going to be kind of scary. I get that you're going to come along, but you got to sit in the back seat and you got to keep your mouth shut. And you definitely do not get to touch the radio, and you definitely do not get to touch the steering wheel. It's another great way to turn your fear into power and unshakable confidence in any conversation. The last way is to soar. Now you're ready to soar. Now you're ready to rise above any conversation. You get to stop. You get to assess and swap that conflict for cooperation. You are positioned to soar and become your authentic self and stand in your true power. Now you're ready. You overcome those self-limiting beliefs by starting to identify yourself as someone who is powerful. Set a new floor for yourself. Instead of saying, I'm shy, say, I'm a person who's powerful. I'm a person who is assertive. Use I statements. I respectfully disagree. Visualize your success. Visualize yourself doing powerful things. And whatever you visualize yourself doing, visualize it the next level up. Your reticular activating system is looking for evidence in reality for whatever it is that you think you are. So look for evidence in reality of good things. Journal your future self. Journal who you are in the future. Write a letter to yourself 6 months from now of all the things that you've accomplished. It's a powerful exercise. Stand in 6 months from now and go, wow, I've done all these amazing things. It's a fantastic exercise. Okay, 5 weaknesses that every single narcissist has. And I want to reveal those to you because they don't want you to know about it. Narcissists are actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. That's the not so secret secret. They are so afraid that you're going to find this out. I always say it's like the Wizard of Oz, that it's like that scared little man behind the curtain, and they have this big, huge thing that they're trying to put in front of everybody and make sure that everybody looks at that. But they're actually hiding this shriveled little thing. They don't want anybody to ever see that. And that is really what's going on. That's really what's going on. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 fears that they have that they don't ever want people to be revealing. They never want revealed. All right. So the number 1 is the fear of being challenged. Have you ever tried to challenge a narcissist in any way at all? They absolutely hate that. I mean, even if you play like a board game with them, they do not want to be challenged in any way, shape, or form. Even if it doesn't matter, there's no consequences. I know for myself, when I'm in a situation with a narcissist, unless it's a situation where I'm dealing with them and as a lawyer, if it's my personal life, I tend to just be like, whatever, dude, have it. Because who cares? Because they do not want to be challenged in any way. And I think it's kind of like a game, you know, because they take everything so personally, but they have this massive fear of being challenged any way, shape, or form. And they will take it to the end. That's number 1. Number 2 is a fear of being slighted. And, this kind of goes hand in hand with that fear of being challenged, but this goes even further. This goes even deeper. I mean, this can even go down, into that whole road rage thing, where if somebody is like a malignant narcissist and they think that somebody has cut them off in traffic or has looked at them wrong, they will take this to the next level and because they have this narcissistic injury, and if it's triggered, then that narcissistic rage comes flying out. And they think that once that happens, they're not thinking clearly. They are full on in that emotional state and survival mode. And it's, if I don't do something about it, then I won't survive, kind of a thing. I mean, it goes back to their childhood where they really feel like if they don't go on this offense, it's almost like an animalistic instinct within them. It makes them feel that if they don't lash out, that they will not survive in some way. I mean, it's deep seated within them, and it's an emotional state in their brain that makes them feel that they need to react so vehemently and so violently sometimes. So that fear of being slighted, and it could be a tone of your voice, it could be a look in your eye, it could be your body language. If they feel they're slighted in some way, they can react pretty strongly sometimes. So fear of being slighted. Number 3 is fear of being abandoned. And, this is an interesting one because they will oftentimes start discarding you. They will oftentimes say, you can leave anytime. I don't care. I don't want you. If it's a business or personal relationship, they could treat you so poorly, ghost you, not talk to you for days at a time. I find this whole thing so ironic, so paradoxical, because you think, why in the world would anyone want to stay in a relationship that is so toxic, so horrible, when somebody has treated you so badly, and yet they have this massive fear of being abandoned, where you don't want, why would you want to stay in a relationship like that? But then you end up wanting to often stay because you end up having these massive highs, these massive lows, and you become so trauma bonded to them a lot of times. I know, but you don't want to have fear. You don't want to have that fear of leaving. You want to end up becoming powerful against them. So no more fear. No more fear for you. You can do this. You can do this. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. I can do this. I can do this, because you can. You can turn this ship around. You can start to turn this power dynamic around. I can help you. If you need phrases for disarming narcissists, I have phrases to help you do that. Go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my free phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com, and use those for emails, for text messages, for talking to them, for communicating with them. It's a great place for you to start, disarmthenarc.com. And know that you don't need to have fear. All right. So, number 4 is fear of being alone. They hate being alone. Have you ever noticed that? They don't like to have their own thoughts, they want to have people around them all the time. Once that discard phase has happened, they have a new form of supply almost immediately, because that's where they get their supply from. Remember, they don't have any internal sense of value. So they have to get all of their value from external sources. And what does that mean? It's from other people generally. I mean, yeah, they can get it from those big houses or money or whatever, but none of that matters unless somebody's noticing it, right? So money is great, prestige is great, but somebody has to be seeing it to notice it. So they've got to have people around them. So fear of being alone is a big part of that. So number 4 is fear of being alone. Number 5 is the biggie, the big, massive one. And this is where, when you go to negotiate with a narcissist, This is how you create leverage. This is it. And in my Slay program, this is what I teach. And that is that they have a massive fear of being alone. Massive fear of being alone, fear of being exposed, fear of being exposed for who they are. This is what you definitely can build your leverage on. Massive fear of being exposed. Their top shelf supply is how they look to the world. And that's how you build your leverage. Remember, SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and stay 2 steps ahead of them and focus on you and you being on the offensive, and then your mindset. And so L is leverage. How do you build that leverage? It is around how they look to the world and you not being jerked around anymore, right? So how do you do that? You find a form of supply that's more important for them to keep than the supply that they get from jerking you around, and then threaten that form of supply. And the way that you can build that is figuring out what it is that it is their fear of being exposed. Remember, they don't want to be exposed. So that's their biggest fear. Number 5, fear of being exposed. When you become fearless against narcissists, when you no longer have that fear against narcissists, I know what it's like. And what happens when you no longer have fear against narcissists? Well, there's so many different things that happen when that power dynamic shifts. And I've seen it happen so many times, but it's a gradual process. Okay. Because, they're in it for the supply. People think they're in it to win it. They're not in it to win it. They're in it for the supply. They're only in it for the supply. And they're in it for many different forms of supply. And one of the things that I have to explain to people a lot of times is that when you go into the discard phase of the relationship, they really actually shift the form of supply that they've been getting from you. Okay, so you understand, right, that there have been the different phases of the relationship. They start off with the whole love bombing thing, that charm, which is all really just to get that supply out of you in the first place. They want to get as quickly as possible to the next phase so that they can start getting the supply out of you as fast as possible. And so as fast as possible, they want to get to the next phase, which is the devalue phase. But it's really more to start exerting control over you, because they want to start showing you that they're powerful, and they want to start letting you know that they're in control of you. How they do that is devaluing you in some ways and letting you know that you are under their thumb. And they also are testing you in that devaluing phase. Okay. So part of the ghosting and the devaluing and all of that is to test you to see how you react when they do those kinds of things. Are you going to be a good source of supply for them? So then, when you start to pull away, they're coming back just, oh no, I don't want you to go because I need you. Leaving them is actually the worst thing that you could possibly do. They have a very, very, very fragile ego. You're really there to serve that need for supply for them. So then when you enter into that discard phase and you actually do start to want to leave them, they want you to be afraid of them. They want you to fear them. And so then when you do start to leave them, they're afraid of that. They don't want you to leave them because they want you to be afraid of them. They want you to fear them. So now it happened. You've been fully conditioned. So you start to leave them. They go into their tantrum phase. Everything that they have done to control you throughout the relationship, they're going to get worse on. They're going to start to collapse, go crazy. And if you want to know more about what happens when the narcissist starts to collapse, you can definitely check out my video on the narcissist collapse. Not pretty. Definitely not pretty. So they start going crazy. They don't want you to leave. So when you do start to leave, now, they start grasping, they go into all their phases of, whatever they were doing in the first place. Now, when you do start to leave, they're going crazy, right? So smear campaigns, flying monkeys, all of that. And then in the middle of a divorce, by the way, it's the worst, depending on what kind of narcissist you're dealing with. It could be covert, malignant, grandiose, but they're not providing documents. They're using the court system as a sword. They might only provide a certain amount of documents. They're hiding money. They might be manipulating text messages, manipulating evidence. They might be tampering with witnesses, evidence, lying to the court system, using the children as pawns in the whole thing, suddenly interested in having the children half the time, trying to get the children to be against you. I mean, whatever it is that they need to do, right? Now you finally are getting past all of that and you start to see through them and you're on the other side of that and you start to realize how strong you actually are and you start to really realize how pathetic they actually are. And you start to realize how strong you actually are. You start to realize that you are actually the stronger one. And you've gotten on the other side of seeing how you've actually been able to slay this beast. You will be so shocked at how they behave. They're going to be avoiding you. They don't want to go anywhere near you. And by the way, they do trade forms of supply. I started to mention that. So whatever form of supply they were getting from you in the relationship, whether it was money, services, sex, you were doing stuff for them, they trade that during the discard phase for manipulating you, making you crazy. People think they just want to win. They don't just want to necessarily win because they trade that for driving you absolutely insane. And that's why these cases never settle, because they love jerking you around. But when you don't fear them anymore, that's when they don't actually want to have anything more to do with you because you're no longer a good source of supply. And by the way, that's the type of person that the narcissist most respects, the person who doesn't fear them. So I want you to write in the comments right now, no fear, no fear, because that's your goal. That's your goal. Your goal is no fear. So for those of you who are ready to go there, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell if you haven't done that already, and make sure that you like this video and share it for others who need this content and need this empowerment, because it is time that we all have no fear against narcissists, right? Now let's dive into disarming narcissists and 10 verbal tactics that they cannot stand. All right, so the first one is refusing to argue. Well, what do they want you to do? They want you to argue, of course. Nothing fuels a narcissist like a good old-fashioned heated argument. They want you to engage with them. They want you to get into it with them. They want you to get into the mud with them. They want to pull you in. They want to get you down into it with them. So instead, stay up here, stay above that fray. Just smile, while they're trying to go fishing and drag you into it. Maintain your composure and avoid falling into that trap. Because let me tell you, it gives them supply. There's three reasons why you don't want to do that. Number one is it gives them supply. Number two is especially if you're in litigation with them, you're negotiating with them, or you're trying to get rid of them. They're using things against you. They're looking for ways to use things against you. I always say that dealing with a narcissist in situations like this is like getting arrested. Anything you say or do is going to be used against you. Okay. And then number three is, as long as you're giving them supply, they're never, ever going to leave you alone. All right. So they're going to come back for that supply. They're like storing it up for the winter. So never, ever, ever give them a reason to keep coming back. Just stay calm. You can go scream, somewhere else, scream in your shower, cry in your pillow, beat something else, but never give them a reason to see that. All right. So refuse to argue. Don't give them that reason. Give your perspective, calmly give your perspective, but deprive them of that conflict that they're desperately seeking from you. I hold my hand up like this. If there's nothing there to push against, then there's nothing there to come back for. Just remain calm. There's nothing there to get from you then at that point. So that's number one. Number two is the power of asking clarifying questions. It drives them absolutely crazy when you do this. When they make a statement and then you ask them to clarify their intentions, it drives them crazy too. When you ask them to explain their intentions or the purpose behind it, they hate that because you expose inconsistencies. You expose their hidden agendas. So, what you do is you say, I just want to clarify what it is that you're saying. So, in other words, what you're saying is that you don't want to continue to have this particular conversation. What you would prefer is that you remain here and I do this. And when you just simply restate back exactly as they stated it, they'll actually say, no, that's not how I stated it. Now you're stating it wrong. No, now you're misquoting me. You are wrong. You're misremembering. They get so upset because they don't like having their agendas repeated back to them. It drives them absolutely crazy. If you just simply restate or ask them clarifying questions. So just to clarify, is this what you're stating? And say it like almost innocently, say it like naively. Oh, I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're saying. Help me to understand. Say it like that. I'm dense. I'm trying to understand what it is that you're saying. So moving on to tactic number 3, you can have honest compliments. While it might feel uncomfortable at times, you can give them genuine compliments. It completely disarms them because they do crave validation. They crave recognition. And so a sincere compliment at a certain time can momentarily actually soften their defenses. And, I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. But at times, especially if you want to get something from them, sometimes I call it fluff for favor, vomit later, where you can give them a compliment in exchange for getting something that you want. Oh, do you mind making dinner, or make this particular dish? You're so great at it. Do you mind grilling? Oh, everybody loves when you grill. You're so fantastic at making the steak. Nobody makes steak the way you do, or whatever it is that you want to say. Now, you have to be careful because obviously you don't want it to come off sounding inauthentic, because they can definitely tell when it's inauthentic. And you don't want to say anything good about yourself because they don't want to hear about that either. And you don't want to do it too often because then they can tell that, you're pandering to them. So this is very strategic in your use of this. You're using this strategically and to your advantage. Now, let's discuss the importance of acknowledging their feelings without getting sucked into their drama. So validating their emotions sometimes without getting entangled into their manipulative games. It's a bit tricky sometimes, but the way I think of it is observing it as a third party. I can see that you are upset, appears that you are angry. I can see that you are emotional, almost as if you are a reporter reporting the news. And you don't need to get down into the mud with it. And sometimes I like to state it almost as if you're an adult looking at a child having a tantrum on the floor. You can empathize with them without being a pawn in their psychological chessboard. And remember, they're going to get insane. They're going to go crazy and they're going to try to distract you from whatever their true intent is. And they might say all kinds of crazy things to gaslight you. Don't get sucked into that. Don't get sucked into their mud. And I have a whole video, by the way, called Insane Things That Narcissists Say to Distract Us from Their True Intent. I highly recommend that you check that out because they play these psychological games. So don't get sucked into that mud. Another one is you want to maintain a sense of boundaries while you're acknowledging the narcissist's feelings. All right, the next tactic is respectfully setting boundaries. One of the ways that I like to do this is something that I call making a plan stand. So you communicate like maybe a time limit ahead of time when you're going to go meet with them. And you say, hey, I can meet with you, but I only have 30 minutes or I only have an hour. And then when that time limit is up, you say, I have to go, whatever it is. I have a meeting afterward or I have something. That way you psychologically know ahead of time the amount of emotional energy that you are going to be having to spend with this person. And then when that time limit is up, you know, that's it. That's all you had to do. By asserting your boundaries, you are now starting to take control. You're starting to assert your independence. You're starting to protect your own well-being in this situation. And you're starting to now grow your independence. One of the things that I say is step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. And that's the way I sort of picture it as far as shifting that dynamic and turning it around in baby steps, baby steps. The next one is neutrality and being objective, and how that plays a critical role in your tactics. So being neutral and objective. And by being neutral and objective in your interactions with them, it helps tremendously. So the way I like to put this is, never being defensive when you're having a conversation with them, never allowing them that satisfaction of, explaining yourself, justifying yourself, right? You never explain, justify, you never overshare, and you deny the narcissist that attention and approval that they so desperately seek. That way they don't monopolize you and control. They attempt to control you. They're going to attempt to control you, but they don't get to. And by the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which I definitely recommend that you get that are for free. And you can get them at disarmthenarc.com. So disarmthenarc.com, phrases for disarming narcissists. And it's so important to differentiate genuine compliments and flattery and pandering, when it comes to disarming narcissists. Insincere praise only reinforces that narcissist. So be mindful of that distinction and giving into their manipulations. All right. So the next tactic is in staying in control of yourself, staying in control of yourself. And it's so crucial to stay in control of your own emotions and staying in control and keeping your emotions in check. So, so, so important when interacting with that narcissist. By doing so, you maintain control of yourself, of your emotions, and prevent that situation from spiraling out of control. And the part of the way that you can do that is by limiting your interaction with them and having those boundaries, because otherwise that narcissist is going to try to bait you and try to do everything they can. They know what your Achilles heel is. They know how to pick at you and try to get at you. So the next thing is, let's discuss the importance of mindful body language. Even subtle changes to your posture or facial expressions can impact the conversation with a narcissist and disarming that narcissist. Just subtle changes. They're so aware of your body language. And just, if you sit up straight, if you hold your hands like even a steeple pose, or you sit like this, the more confident that you can be in your body language, the more they will pick up on that. They will recognize that you now feel more powerful in yourself, and it will disarm them. You hold your head up high. They know who you are now. I mean, a powerful person is a narcissist kryptonite, a truly powerful person, a person who knows who they are. So tactic number 9 is standing your ground without being confrontational. Be firm and assertive in your discussions with a narcissist, but always maintain respect. This way you can express your opinions and your boundaries without coming across as overly aggressive. You don't have to be aggressive, but you can certainly stand firm. And finally, the last tactic is expressing your thoughts while remaining respectful. This is the power of disengagement. So sometimes the best approach is to disengage, and you can just say, I'm choosing to no longer be in this conversation, and distance yourself from toxic interactions with that narcissist, and prioritize your well-being when it's necessary to step away and say, this conversation's not working for me. And so we can resume this conversation at a time when you are calm, and that's fine. And emphasize your own self-care and disengage from that narcissist. You can disengage respectfully, but you can disengage in a way that letting them know that their behavior is not okay for you. And there you have it. That's 10 verbal tactics to disarm yourself from a toxic person. Okay, so I help people negotiate with narcissists, and they are the most mean when they have to negotiate, because it is then that the gloves come off, because that's when everything becomes black and white. Because for a narcissist, you are either for them or against them. You're either in their camp or not. They don't see things in gray. You are either part of their world, part of their army, or not. And they are so easily slighted. And when they even hint that there's something in the air, that there's some kind of thing that you might be against them, boy, do they get mean. And so what is that number one emotion that's happening behind that? Why do they get so mean? Especially when you think, wow, I've done so much for you. And I'm telling you, this is in a business setting. This is in a personal setting. This is in a family setting, no matter what it is. And you're over there thinking, how do you not see all the things that I've done for you, the relationship that we've had, and you don't want to have closure. You don't want to maybe have some kind of relationship after this. Why do you want to burn this thing to the ground? Why are you so mean? And by the way, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm an attorney. I'm a narcissist negotiation expert. I recommend that you go ahead and subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. I upload brand new videos every single day. I've helped millions and millions of people through this channel and through my books, through my podcast, through my law practice. And I want to help you too. What is that number one emotion that is behind the narcissist mean streak? Narcissists are driven by a need for attention. They're driven by a need for validation. They are super insecure. They're threatened by people who they perceive to be better than them. This insecurity leads them to put people down. It leads them to do all sorts of things. But what's behind that? What's behind this deep need, right? What's behind that? What's inside? They seek power and they seek control, and people just see all of that. And a lot of people think, wow, they're so confident and they get so far in life. And many people only see that side of them. And they think, wow, this person makes me feel so bad. They make me feel so small. Yeah, they are fueled by this sense of entitlement, and they want to feel special, and they think that they should get this special treatment. And yes, they are extremely manipulative, and they think that they should get what they want all the time. Why do they do these things? What's behind that? And why are they constantly moving the goalposts? And I'm telling you that in negotiations, if you think that all they want to do is win, you are dead wrong. Because that is not all that they want. They don't want to just win. If they just wanted to win, then why is it that when people say, just let me give them everything they want, I'll be out of it? Why are you not out of it? Why is it that they keep moving goalposts? It's because of this thing, right? They also enjoy the process of making you squirm. They also enjoy the process of manipulating you. They get narcissistic supply from that. They enjoy getting supply from that. That feeds them. Everything is driven by supply. Everything is driven by that almighty supply. It's their food, it's their lifeblood, it's their oxygen. They need to feel like they're alive. And that's what drives them. That's what makes them feel alive, right? And so they lie, they cheat, they do all these things to get ahead. And because they don't have any sense of empathy or compassion for others, they don't feel anything when they trample on people, when they step on people. They don't see that wake behind them. They don't see the bloodbath that they're leaving behind them. And they are charismatic and charming, and they can get what they want. And that also makes them very dangerous. So you do need to know the signs of narcissism so that you can protect yourself from being taken advantage of. The number one emotion behind all of this is not necessarily what you think. Yes, it's driven by this need for narcissistic supply. Yes, it's driven by this need to feed that beast inside of them that has to feel like they matter deeply, and that's why they can't feel anything about you. It's that black hole inside of them that can never be filled, and you might want to fill it too, but it can never be filled, and that's why you're left totally and completely and utterly depleted. It's a one-way street that it never goes the other direction. But really what it's being driven by is fear. That's the emotion. That's the emotion behind it. It's fear of loss, fear of not being significant, fear of being no one, fear of losing everything, all of it. Fear of not having power, fear of not having attention, fear of not being validated, fear of being exposed. All of it is driven by fear. They're extremely, extremely scared people inside. They've got these two sides to them at all times. There's this inside person and this outside person. And that's what you need to understand. You know, there's two sides to each person, each narcissist. And, you know, what happens when you whip off that mask? You know, that's the next video that you need to watch of mine. When you whip off, especially the covert narcissist masks, you know, what happens to them? I mean, they don't know what to do when you expose them. That's the number one emotion that's really behind what's going on, a narcissist's mean streak, especially when they feel threatened. And when you're dealing with them in a negotiation, they are at their absolute worst. But you can't give up and you can't give in because they're at their worst right before they're ready to give up. And I know it seems hard to believe, but it is the absolute truth. So never give in. And that's what I want you to put in the comments right now. Never give in, because that's when you're about to win. Never give in, never give up. Put never give in the comments right now. Never give in. There's an old story about how this gold miner was just about ready to hit gold, and then he gave up, and then they found out that he gave up and he was 3 feet from gold, 3 feet from hitting the mother lode of gold. So you don't want to be 3 feet from gold. You don't want to give up. Don't give up. Never give in, because they are afraid. They're way more afraid of you than you are of them. And that's what they don't want you to figure out. Things have turned red hot. You are under massive attack. They're triggering you because that's what they want to do. They want to make sure that you're triggered. They want to destabilize you. They want you to feel paralyzed. They want you to feel powerless. That's their goal. It's not just, by the way, it's not just because they want to win. Yes, they want to win, but there's kind of like this other piece of it, because if they win, then it's over. And they don't necessarily want it to be over, because then the fun is over for them. Because part of the fun is the intimidation factor. Part of the fun is watching you squirm. Part of the fun is like, it's kind of like that nasty kid who just like takes the earthworm and like wants to pick at it and watch it kind of squirm, put pins in it and see what happens to it. Like that's kind of the fun of it for them. It's almost like an experiment. They enjoy it. So how do you look fearless when they're like enjoying that? So I've come up with this acronym. It's called Cool Words, and it's to help you remember what to do when they are trying to stick it to you. Because a lot of times, by the way, they know you, especially if it's in a divorce situation or a business partner dissolution or something where they've really gotten to know you well over the course of many years. They know what your Achilles heels are. They know how to get to you. They know exactly what is going to needle you. So, cool words. C. C stands for chill out, take a break. First thing you can do is just walk away. Say, I need a moment. I need to walk outside. I need to take a breath. Go throw some cold water on your face. Go to the restroom. Take some fresh air in. Just get away from the intensity of the room. Just doing that for a few minutes will make a huge difference. You have the right to just walk away for a second, change it up a little bit, especially if there's a mediator. If you happen to be in a mediation setting, maybe even say, you know, I want to talk to just the mediator for a second, or maybe have just the lawyers talk, or maybe ask to have a different dynamic as far as who's talking to whom. Even just that can kind of cool the temperatures down in the room for a second. Okay, so that's C. That's the first C. The next letter is O for cool words. All right. So O. O stands for observe their behavior. You're just observing their behavior verbally to them without emotion and without judgment. So you say to them something like this: I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. You might even ask them, what's making you angry right now? Get them to verbalize it. So you're just observing, you're observing their behavior to them. You're just kind of taking yourself out of it by doing that. And you're asking them to explain their behavior to you without emotion, without defensiveness, without judgment. You're not getting down into it with them by doing that. So that's the first O. The second O, we're working through the word cool here. The second O is observing the situation as if you're a bystander. So the first O is you're observing their behavior to them. The second O is you're observing the situation as if you're a bystander. So this is where you're actually taking yourself out of the entire situation as if you're not even part of it. It's almost like watching a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. They're screaming, they're yelling. You don't feel like you need to get down on the floor and scream and yell, right? You usually just watch them. This is almost helpful, like as if you're watching a football game or you're watching a wrestling match, or you're a hockey game and you're seeing like those guys, like they start fighting, right? Because it helps you to start to not take things as personally. Because remember, the way people treat other people is always a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. Highly recommend the book, The 4 Agreements. One of the 4 agreements that you make with yourself is you never take anything personally, because the way people treat other people is always a reflection of the way they feel about themselves. Observing the situation as if you're a bystander is something actually that Judge Lynn Toller also recommended when I interviewed her, and you can definitely check out my interview with her on this channel as well, and we'll make sure we have a link to that here as well. So definitely check that out. The next letter is L. We're working through the word cool. So we've done COO, now we're doing L. L is let it go by you. You're just literally watching the words that they fling toward you just go by you. I just think of it as like when I was a kid and I used to play dodgeball. Like they would make us, not willingly, by the way. Hated that game. But when they would make us play that game in PE, they called it PE, and they forced us to line up against the wall. Do they still make kids play that game? Horrible game. They force you to line up against the wall, and the boys would fling the ball at you as hard as possible. And you would like try to dodge the ball. Anyway, so you just kind of like watch the words go by you just like that. Like you just go past them. The words go by you, and there they go. And you're just observing them go by you, and they don't touch you. And that's what you're going to have them do. You're just letting them go by you. That's L. All right. And then words. This is my favorite part of this. You use mantras, words, power words to keep you grounded. And so what you do is you actually have power words in front of you. So they could be words like power, strength, leverage, resilience, confidence, or control, whatever it is. And you just have 1 or 2 of them right in front of you just to remind you of who you are, what you're doing there. And you don't even have to have the whole word written out. You can just write P for power, something that's going to keep you grounded, keep you feeling strong. It could be just a symbol, something that when you look at it, it's going to remind you of that word. In the book, Think and Grow Rich, which I also recommend, Napoleon Hill talks about that power of autosuggestion, which is a way for you to reprogram your brain and your neuronal patterns. And so by having these words there, something that is in the room with you when you're in that situation, that high emotion, that tense and intensive situation. It's a way for you to remind yourself who you are, and you're going to be less likely to be triggered that way. It's reminding you that you're badass. You're a badass. And that badass self of yours is going to stay in that room, and it ain't going to go anywhere when you're under attack, so that you can remain looking fearless. Okay, so that narcissist has hurt you so many times. How about you know what hurts the narcissist the most for a change? And this is really important because this really has so much to do with how to powerfully negotiate with narcissists. And this is something that I teach all the time. This is something that I really, really share in my negotiation courses and in my training. So this is the critical piece. And by the way, you need to watch till the end, because the ending is going to absolutely shock you. All right. So the one thing they really don't want more than anything is they don't want to be exposed. There's different levels of things for narcissists. They don't want to be exposed, meaning they want to look good at all times. They don't want to be exposed. So one of the main things that could really hurt a narcissist is criticism in front of people they respect. And this could come in a lot of different forms. So making them look bad in front of others, criticizing their intelligence, criticizing their looks, their success. You could be out to dinner. You could say something so benign, you know, like we were out at a gas station and he wasn't pumping the gas himself or something like that. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just totally making something up. This isn't something that ever happened to me in my real life, just so you know. And the husband could like go flipping out over that. I mean, something that you wouldn't even think wouldn't even be a thing. He didn't drink all of his coffee. I mean, anything. And all of a sudden, like, that's a huge thing. You just never know what could set them off sometimes, because sometimes I always joke that narcissists hear tones like dogs hear whistles. I mean, sometimes you could say something to them and they go, oh, you know, you said something to me in a very sarcastic way. And you know, I didn't say anything, but they hear that as a criticism. Sometimes they take things in a way that's a criticism that's not even a criticism, and they're very easily slighted. They don't like that. Sometimes it's just even sharing personal information about them with other people they perceive to be personal. They don't like that. Sometimes it's having an achievement invalidated. They don't like that. There's a lot of different things, but if they are criticized in front of people in a certain way, they definitely don't like that. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, certainly any kind of potential exposure is going to be a great way to create leverage. In my SLAY methodology, which is strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, I talk a lot about how to create that strategy, that leverage. And leverage is oftentimes tied up in that potential exposure, because they really don't want to be criticized. They really don't want to be exposed. In my video, How to Make a Narcissist Panic, I talk about how to make a narcissist panic. You can definitely check that out if you'd like. They definitely do not want to be exposed. So that is one thing where you could really hurt that narcissist. Okay. Number one, criticism in front of people they respect. All right. Number two, it could even be more in a private setting, but being ignored or being told no. Any kind of thing where you're ignoring the narcissist. And by the way, this is one of those things, good for the goose, not good for the gander, or, you know, gander, goose, whatever. Who's ghosting all the time? Yeah, narcissists have no problem doing that to you, but definitely can't ignore them. I mean, they will flip out if you ignore them or tell them no, or just any kind of thing where they feel like they're not in control, they don't like that. Or if you tell them they're not good enough or they're worthless or anything like that, of course, they don't like that. No, who likes that anyway? I mean, obviously, but they really don't like that. I mean, if you tell somebody who has a strong sense of self that they're not good enough, that they're not worthless or something like that, they might go, okay, whatever. But if you tell a narcissist that, they might get extremely defensive. They may not like that at all. You really don't want to do that sort of thing, even private with a narcissist. They can projection, deflection, especially if they can be abusive or something like that. You really have to be careful about that as well. And if any of this is resonating with you guys so far, give me a totally in the comments or tell me what you guys have seen so far as what hurts the narcissist the most. Okay, so those are the first two. Now I'm going to unveil what I told you is, I think, going to shock some of you. This is not what you normally would think of when it comes to narcissists, but it's true. And I've told you guys many times that the narcissist is the most scared little person on the planet, deep down inside. And so the last one, the thing that scares them the most, the thing that would hurt them the most, number 3, is being abandoned. Yep. The narcissist is really, really afraid of being abandoned, and that would hurt them the most. But let me tell you, you cannot save them. And staying with them will absolutely suck your soul. It will drain the life out of you. Believe me, I know. And I was never with a narcissist in a romantic situation. My situation was, I was in a business situation, and then we have one in our family, my husband and I. And there's a reason they're called energy vampires, okay, guys? You can't expect that they will be rehabilitated. You empaths out there, I see you out there. You think you can save them, and you cannot. No, you can't. You can't fix what's broken. Something happened deep down inside in them a long time ago. You can't fix it. You can't fill that void. It's a hole that cannot be filled. They have a fear of being abandoned. That will hurt the narcissist the most. You can't fix that. What narcissists fear the most? Okay, so there are a lot of things that narcissists fear. And really what it comes down to is what they don't want you to know. So let's talk about the psychology of a narcissist. And when you are negotiating with them, it's really, really important to understand who it is that you're dealing with so that you can understand what motivates them. Really, what it comes down to is understanding what motivates them, understanding how to get them to shift so that you can understand how to create a strategy, so that you can understand how to create leverage. That's my whole SLAY strategy, right? Which is strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you, your case, and your position. And that's my whole SLAY methodology. And so when you're dealing with a narcissist, you have to understand that you're dealing with a person who has very little sense of self. They're actually very afraid people. They're worried that if they give anything that they're going to not have enough for themselves. It's scarcity mentality at its most extreme. Okay, they're like the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. They look good on the outside, but there's nothing going on the inside. And the only thing that motivates them is this sense of narcissistic supply, that that they want this external validation. That's the only thing that motivates them. So what do they not want you to know? What do they fear the most? Well, number 1, that they fear you more than you fear them. Okay, I mean, they're actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. And it's like the wizard behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. They're like scared, and they put this big huge thing up like the Wizard of Oz is, like, the all great and powerful. But the truth of the matter is, they're way more afraid of you than you are of them. Right? So that's number 1. Number 2, Number two is they are truly the most scared little creatures on the planet. And that's why they do all the things that they do. I mean, I did a mediation with one of the most malignant narcissists ever, and he came crashing into the mediation and immediately started making unreasonable demands. Like there were these dogs that had been at his house, and the adult daughter had come over to the house and had taken the dogs. It wasn't even the wife that had taken the dogs. I was representing the wife. She didn't have the dogs. He starts off 8 o'clock in the morning. I want the dogs back. She doesn't have the dogs. I'm not mediating. I'm not doing anything until you have the dog. He doesn't want the dogs. He just wants to make a statement. He wants to demonstrate that he has control because he's afraid. Because he was afraid that this process was going to be a scary process for him. People who are not afraid, they don't do things like that. They don't act that way. So number two, they are the most scared little creatures on the planet. They really are. All right. Number three is what I've been saying. They have no sense of self. They're not standing in their power. They don't have that inner sense of feeling whole and complete, like that oak tree that just stands, that just moves with the wind, but really stays rooted and grounded. I mean, it's like if somebody calls you a name or whatever, and if you know that that's not what you are, it just bounces off of you. But they take it all on because they have no sense of self, and so all of their sense of anything of themselves comes from that external, comes from that sense of narcissistic supply. And that's how you create that leverage, because that's what exposes them. All right. And then that leads me to number four. Number four is what they fear the most: being exposed. And that's how you build leverage, by the way, is around exposing them. And I have a lot more of this in my video, by the way, called The One Secret That the Narcissist Never Wants You to Know, which you should definitely check out, but they definitely do not want to be exposed. All right. Number five, what's another thing that they fear the most? That you're going to fight back. That's why they say things like, oh, I'm going to take you down and I'm going to do this to you and this is what's going to happen. And because they're afraid that you're actually going to do it. They are scared to death that you're actually going to fight back. Because if you do, they actually get unbalanced. They don't want you to fight back. Believe me, they don't. Number six, they don't want you to not need them. They want you to need them. They want to be in control of you. Oh my goodness. I had a case one time where my client was divorcing his wife, but his mother was actually in control of the entire family. It was an Italian family, and the custody evaluator actually referred to her as like the godmother, sort of like the godfather, but she was like the godmother, where she controlled the entire family through the money and the power and all of that. And the fact that my client was successful in his own right and wanted to break away from the family was the cardinal sin. And the custody evaluator actually put that in the custody evaluation. Like, he no longer needed her. And she was a malignant narcissist. So that was one of the things that happened. Like, she didn't want him to not need her. So, number seven, one of the worst fears that they have, honestly, is that you no longer think that they're relevant. Think about some of the politicians, I mean, or some of the celebrities out there. I mean, they'll do anything to stay relevant sometimes, right? I mean, anything to stay in the news, anything to stay, like you've seen, them do crazy things just to stay on the front page, just to have reporters talking about them because they want to stay relevant. They want to stay current. They want people to be noticing them. So that's number 7. Number 8 is that you no longer think that they matter. And number 9 is similar, which is that you've completely moved on. I mean, that is really what they fear the most. I mean, that's what really crushes them, is when you completely wipe them from the CPU of your life. That's the way I look at it, is like your life is a computer program and you've been able to go in and just go, oh, here they are, here they are, here they are, wipe, 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 wipe. You never existed in my life. Who are you again? What's your name? Like where somebody can actually say their name and you feel nothing. I mean, some of the best emails and messages that we get on my team are the ones where people say, I did your program, I got the results that I wanted, and wow, the surprising result that I had is that my fear has disappeared. I am no longer afraid of this person. And if you are so ready to feel that you are no longer afraid of this person or whoever it is or any narcissist, give me an I'm ready in the comments right now, because that's what they fear the most. You're not afraid of them anymore. You just moved on, that you're not moved by them. You're not intimidated by them. They're just a gnat flying around, you know? And really, that's the best thing for you, too, by the way, because when you can get to that point, when you can get to the point where you have overcome everything that you needed to overcome with any kind of a toxic personality in your life, whether it's in your business life or your personal life, and you've gotten to a point where you've been able to not feel intimidated when you walk into a room, where you feel powerful and persuasive and you feel whole and complete, and you feel like you are living into the person that you're meant to be, that you're meant to be here. That's living into your power. That's being who you're truly meant to be. You are a person, a soul who is having a human experience, who was meant to be here, who's meant to shine. You're not meant to be small. And that is when you are truly free. And that is what the narcissist fears the most, that you're living in your power and truly free. What happens when the narcissist realizes they shouldn't have played you? So what do I mean by play you? Well, what happens is this, and oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this. This is how it plays out. They think they're so swift. They've got their regular source of supply over here, could be their wife, who's dutifully put everything into them for 20 years or 30 years or whatever, given them everything, given them love, given them, put them through school or whatever, been there, been the stable one, love them unconditionally, put up with all of their whatever moods and everything. They've been pretty bad to them. I'm using the narcissist in this particular case as the male, but it could be the female, whatever, or it could be a business partner. Could be the business partner who put up with them being the one who was moody and didn't do half the stuff that they said they were supposed to do, or 80% of the stuff they said they were supposed to do. And the business partner was the one who was there and stable and showed up and did all the things. Narcissist then goes out, thinks they're being swift and cool, starts grooming new source of supply, while old source of supply doesn't know, continues to be the good person. So they're gaming this whole situation. I've seen it. I'm going to give you a real world example. I had a situation where I was representing a woman whose husband, I think they found each other through Facebook or something. He ended up going to his high school reunion by himself because his wife, number one, had breast cancer. And then number two, ended up having to go help her mother because the mother was sick. So here's his wife, breast cancer, mother sick. They'd been married for like 25 years or something, put up with narcissist, jackass guy. He's, trolling Facebook, finds high school or I think it was a college ex-girlfriend, goes to his college reunion, hooks up with college ex, and thinks, I'm in like Flynn with the college ex. This college ex is, better source of supply in some way, whatever, thinks that person's going to be better. Goes back to wife who'd been the great person for him, had put him through school, had been the supportive, stable one for him, raised his children, all of that. Says, I want a divorce. Wife is devastated. Can't believe it. I can't believe you would do this to me. You are doing this to me while I've been sick, while my mother has been sick. Oh my gosh. Gets over the devastation. She's dying. Not dying, but she's like, she can't believe that he's doing this to her. So I'm her attorney. Okay. So I get to see front row this whole thing where she's devastated and he's like, and throughout the whole thing, he's trying to like comfort her and she's like, get off me. Whatever. They go through the divorce. She ends up going to live with their daughter because she's so devastated, picks up the pieces of her life, finally gets herself together, meets another man. She's actually stronger and better than ever. She starts taking dancing lessons. She realizes, hey, my life is actually better than it's ever been. I found somebody who actually loves me. I'm traveling. This guy did me a favor. I'm happier than I've ever been. This is great. Thank you for doing this. Meanwhile, I know you can predict the end of this story. High school girlfriend, she decides, yeah, I don't need this dude. Kicks him out. So guess what? Narcissist realizes he shouldn't have played her and realizes, I want her back. I don't like this anymore. So tries to go back to the other one and, oh no, realizes that, geez, she was the loyal one. She was the good one. She put up with me. That's where I had felt safe. I could treat her however I wanted. And she'd put up with me. And, oh, well, too bad, so sad. No, thank you. That's what happens when a narcissist realizes maybe they shouldn't have played you, but it's too late at that point. I have seen that particular story play out over and over and over again because narcissists don't realize how good they have it until it's gone. They always try to go back. They go into these patterns, but you will grow. You will expand. You will learn. You will get better. You will find peace and joy and happiness. And because you, as an empath, will learn how to heal. Narcissists don't. If you are a person who's open and trainable and coachable and willing to do therapy and willing to expand, then your life will be so much better. But a narcissist won't. I often think about that Stevie Nicks song where, thunder always happens when it's raining. Players always only love you when you're playing. You can never go back. They'll realize what they've had when it's gone. And that will be karma. That's what happens with karma. That's what happens when a narcissist realizes that they shouldn't have played you. And you'll just be the bigger person and you'll send them light, but from over there. That's what you'll do.